and just think outside the box and get the views.
Oscar De La Hoya wastes my time.
Boxing is the best, the purest, the most beautiful sport in the world when the best fight the best.
I mean, I think he should go down and win a title at 160 because he won at 47, 40, 54, 68. Go get 60 and you got to close it out. That's fine.
Us fighters who get in the ring and risk our lives, you know, there's enough.
As fighters near the final stage of their careers and begin earning massive paydays worth millions, Oscar De La Hoya believes poor decisions often follow. In his view, Terence Crawford already reached the top by defeating Canelo Alvarez and securing his legacy in the sport. But according to De La Hoya, that achievement may have created an even bigger issue moving forward today. We'll break down Oscar's direct warning aimed at Crawford and explain why a possible showdown with Jermell Charlo could become far more dangerous than many people expect. That it's always simple for people to criticize or change their opinions after a fight is already over. However, Oscar De La Hoya stood out as one of the rare major boxing figures who confidently predicted that Terence Crawford would defeat Canelo Alvarez before the fight even happened.
Crawford versus Canelo, which I feel Crawford will win.
Yeah. Okay.
But it'll be a great fight.
Yeah.
During an interview with Ariel Helwani, Oscar De La Hoya explained that the outcome never shocked him in the slightest. He said he not only believed Terence Crawford would win, but had already understood the reasons behind it several days before the fight even took place.
I'm impressed with Terence. Yeah.
I
was not surprised at all. I mean, I called him, I don't know how many days before.
De La Hoya, who had backed Canelo for years throughout his career, stated that he understood the champion better than most people. He explained that he was fully aware of the kind of pressure and challenges Canelo could deal with inside the ring, and which situations would create serious problems for him.
I know Canelo, I promoted him. I know exactly what he cannot handle and what he can handle, where he looks great and where he doesn't. And Crawford was the perfect opponent or fighter to derail the train. That was the bottom line. You move on Canelo just a little bit, and he gets lost.
Oscar believed his prediction became reality because he recognized a weakness in Canelo long before the fight happened. And now, he's using that same understanding to send a warning to Terence Crawford about what comes next in his career. According to De La Hoya, this was never blind speculation. He viewed Crawford's performance as a calculated breakdown carried out by a fighter who exposed Canelo's weaknesses with precision. That context matters when listening to Oscar's next point. In his opinion, Canelo's biggest issue had nothing to do with punching power or durability. De La Hoya explained that the real problem appeared whenever opponents used movement against him. He described Canelo as a fighter whose footwork could become too stationary, leaving him vulnerable against someone with Crawford's elite boxing intelligence and accuracy.
Makes me horny!
Yeah, baby!
To tell you I told you so.
I told you!
I predicted the Canelo-Crawford fight like a goddamn fortune teller.
You're the Oracle?
Canelo's feet were cemented on the canvas as he was hitting air. What the f was that? Props to Crawford.
Thank you.
He came up 3 weight classes and fought a beautiful fight.
Good job.
What a great performance.
Did you get what you was looking for?
Like taking candy from a baby.
My candy!
Speaking again during Clapback Thursday, Oscar doubled down on his opinion of the fight. He said Terence Crawford completely controlled Canelo throughout the matchup and made the performance look one-sided from start to finish. De La Hoya also rejected every argument connected to Canelo's age, quickly pointing out that Crawford is actually the older fighter between the two.
He just played with Canelo, made him look silly. And before you start with your about Canelo being old, just know that Crawford is older.
I'm too old.
That's not an excuse here. Look, I promoted Canelo's entire career.
Put some respect on it.
And it was a huge fluff.
How do you like them apps?
The only real fighters he's faced were Mayweather, Bivol, and Crawford, and they all toyed with him.
That breakdown is important because it highlights the line between Crawford's brilliance and the particular flaw Canelo brought into the fight. Crawford's success came from identifying and exploiting a weakness that perfectly matched his style and abilities. But the concern now is that the opponent waiting for him next may not carry the same vulnerability, which could create a completely different challenge inside the ring.
And It'll silence a lot of doubters. Not all of them, but it'll silence a lot of doubters, and he can move on to the next challenge. And then that next challenge is possibly a top 10 in the world.
I think the smaller Charlo could be even more dangerous. The smaller Charlo has speed and fights harder, and he's in your face. It's a great payday for him, and he took that into consideration when making the decision. It's going to be a tough task. I mean, 2 weight divisions is historical if he wins, and 2 weight divisions if he loses, he has the perfect excuse. I moved up 2 weight divisions.
Sometimes victory comes down to having the perfect strategy for one specific opponent, and that's the point Oscar De La Hoya was making. When Ariel Helwani asked whether Terence Crawford could continue dominating as champion, De La Hoya gave a direct answer. He wasn't convinced it would happen. According to Oscar, the danger facing Crawford has nothing to do with power punches, size, or moving through weight divisions. He believes the real threat comes after earning massive money late in a fighter's career. Once athletes begin collecting enormous purses worth 7 or 8 figures, their mindset can slowly change. De La Hoya explained that he has watched this happen many times before. The hunger that once pushed fighters toward greatness can begin to fade once financial security is achieved. In his view, the issue is not necessarily about refusing to work hard in training camp. The biggest shift happens in decision-making. The opponents a boxer chooses, the motivation behind taking fights, and the comfort that wealth can create over time.
I'm impressed with Terence. Yeah.
Surprised?
I was not surprised at all. I mean, I called it, I don't know how many days before.
The warning Oscar De La Hoya is giving comes down to recognizing the moment when a fighter's motivation shifts. Once the focus moves away from building greatness and starts revolving around massive paychecks, that's when danger begins to appear. Right now, Terence Crawford is at the peak of the sport. He just defeated one of boxing's biggest names. The offers are becoming enormous, and every opportunity carries huge money attached to it. De La Hoya believes that this is exactly the stage where fighters can become vulnerable without even realizing it. According to Oscar, that risk could show itself in a matchup against Jermell Charlo. He explained that Crawford could eventually choose the wrong opponent at the wrong moment, and Charlo represents that kind of threat. In De La Hoya's view, Charlo presents a far different challenge than Canelo. He's not a stationary target. He naturally carries more size around the weight, and he would likely enter the fight with extra motivation after his own defeat against Canelo. Oscar described him as the kind of dangerous opponent fighters sometimes underestimate when they are already focused on bigger paydays and future plans.
Crawford afterwards hinting at maybe retirement. Do you think he retires? No.
Not at all.
Now he's making the big bucks, right?
Well, now he has a taste of 7 figures, 8 figures, whatever it might be. Once you get a taste of that, towards the end of your career, you're going to make a few mistakes.
For Terence Crawford, the challenge may not only come from Jermell Charlo's ability inside the ring. The bigger concern could be the temptation to underestimate the fight after making his previous performance look so comfortable. That there's also the physical side of the matchup to consider. Unlike Crawford, Jermell Charlo has already experienced what it feels like to compete against a true super middleweight with elite strength and power. After his loss to Canelo Alvarez, Charlo openly admitted how difficult the experience was. He described Canelo as an incredibly powerful fighter who knew how to use his strength effectively throughout the fight. Charlo also confessed that moving up to that division for the first time affected him physically, saying afterward that he wished he had added more weight before stepping into the ring.
What's up, guys? Canelo Charlo, super boring fight. I mean, he just showed up for a paycheck. Canelo, obviously, like I said, on quicksand, throwing bombs. He won easy. But anyway, look, if we want boxing to survive, if we want boxing to thrive, we need super fights. Like all the time. Fighters must fight each other. We have to come together. Promoters, Eddie Hearn, Al Heyman, Bob Arum, whoever's out there, let's come together. I'm calling you out. Let's come together. Let's meet the power of the minds and come up with something, because boxing can die. I'm calling you all out. Let's do this.
What makes Jermell Charlo more dangerous now is the knowledge he gained from that experience. After sharing the ring with Canelo Alvarez, He now understands firsthand what real super middleweight strength feels like at 168 pounds. That matters because Terence Crawford began his professional journey in much lighter divisions around 135 pounds. Even though Crawford managed to defeat Canelo, De La Hoya believes Charlo's experience at the weight could still create problems. Charlo's comments about Canelo's strength served as a reminder of how physically demanding that division can be, especially for fighters moving up in weight. According to the argument being made, that lesson humbled Charlo and could make him a far more prepared and dangerous opponent in another major fight. Oscar De La Hoya was also highly critical of the original Canelo-Charlo matchup. He argued that Charlo approached that fight too cautiously and seemed more focused on collecting the payday than taking the risks necessary to win.
Boxing, so I'm not going nowhere and, just jump right into it. And, Canelo's a motherfucking beast, you know what I'm saying? He'll ox. Maybe I felt that more because of the fact that, this is my first time at that weight division. I wish I could have gained a little bit more weight in between from the weigh-in to that time, but I can't control my body and I can't, but like God had this already written. And, I'm glad that I was in there to put on a performance for Showtime pay-per-view.
In your perspective, why don't you think he could have stopped Charlo?
No, he could have stopped Charlo. He should have. I mean, first of all, you had a fighter who was there just for the payday, literally. I mean, he's in the biggest stage of his life. Go out there and take some risks. Fight hard. People paid their money. People buy it on pay-per-view. Fight hard. Because when you fight hard, you don't lose anything. When it's a great fight, there's no loser.
But that criticism actually highlights why Jermell Charlo could be even more dangerous now. With the major payday already secured, the pressure of just showing up is gone, and that earlier cautious version of him may no longer exist. A flat, hesitant performance against Canelo Alvarez could push him in the opposite direction going forward. In a potential fight with Terence Crawford, Charlo might not resemble the same fighter fans saw before. Instead, he could enter with a completely different mindset, fighting to redeem himself, with nothing left to protect and everything to prove. That kind of mentality can create unpredictability, which is often the most dangerous element in boxing. The argument being made is that Crawford's success against Canelo came from timing and control against a more readable, structured opponent. But a version of Charlo driven by urgency and desperation would not fight in the same way. He would be more willing to take risks, push forward unexpectedly, and break patterns. That's why the warning is clear. A fighter who has already been publicly criticized and learned from it can return sharper, more aggressive, and far less predictable than before.
Despite what anybody say, that's a 50-50 fight. Canelo got good inside game, but he gonna have to get past Charlo long arms. And Charlo, he can use his reach good. He's strong. He got a good jab. It's a toss-up with me.
That's going. Charlo got that punching power. I'm just going to say that.
I think Charlo's going to take it. The reason why I say that is because
there's also a different narrative that has been circulating online, often pushed by outlets such as Boxing Ego. According to this view, Terence Crawford's resume is questioned by some who claim his biggest wins came against compromised or diminished opponents. Critics point to fighters like Ricky Burns, saying he was already past his best. They also mention Yordenis Ugas and others such as Jose Benavidez Jr., who had previously dealt with a serious injury. Kell Brook is also brought up, with his eye issues after facing elite opposition, and Errol Spence Jr., who had survived a major car accident before fighting Crawford. Even Canelo Alvarez is sometimes included in that discussion, with claims that he was no longer at his absolute peak from that perspective. Some argue that Jermell Charlo could represent a different type of test, an undefeated, physically strong, and fully healthy opponent without those same circumstances. However, the damaged goods argument doesn't fully hold up under scrutiny. Many analysts counter it by pointing to Crawford's elite boxing intelligence as the real deciding factor in his success. The idea is that he doesn't just beat opponents physically. He breaks down that timing, rhythm, and decision-making inside the ring. A common discussion among fans highlights that fighters like Canelo have historically struggled most against opponents with extremely high boxing IQ, such as Floyd Mayweather, Dmitry Bivol, and now Crawford. From this point of view, Crawford's greatest strength is not timing or power alone, but his ability to read and dismantle an opponent mentally as the fight develops. That's why the key question isn't really about the condition of past opponents, but whether that same fight intelligence can solve a bigger, stronger, and potentially more desperate challenger like Charlo. And as Oscar De La Hoya has noted in earlier comments, even fights that appear one-sided on paper don't always reflect the full picture inside the ring.
Elite level. So I think it's a great fight. I just think that the press conferences were freaking lame.
Why?
Just because it was all staged. I mean, come on, guys. Look, if you want to see Canelo pissed off, take a look at my press conference. Right now, with Munguia and Canelo. That's Canelo pissed off.
De La Hoya wastes my time with this question.
Yeah, we saw Oscar De La Hoya trying to say that the fight was going to take place maybe in the daytime.
Yeah, this is what I want from you, to say his name. I decide with Dana White to have a breakfast in MGM at 10 a.m. inshallah. Then we will go to the arena to have the fights quick, and after that we will go dinner to Carbon, and in the night we will watch Conjuring because it will launch in September. Oscar De La Hoya wastes my time with this question. Of course, this is in the peak. This is the boxing, the sport number one in the world. This is Canelo and Crawford.
Crawford's camp would make a serious mistake if they studied that fight and concluded that Charlo is naturally a passive or uninspiring fighter. The way Charlo approached the bout with Canelo Alvarez was shaped by multiple factors at once: power difference, the magnitude of the event, and the jump in weight class, all of which likely affected his performance and confidence against Terence Crawford. However, the situation could be completely different. Charlo may not carry the same hesitation, especially if he views Crawford as a naturally smaller fighter rather than a physically overwhelming super middleweight. In that sense, the cautious version seen against Canelo could be an outlier rather than his true fighting identity. According to this interpretation, Charlo's real style was never fully expressed in that fight. What fans saw was a restricted version of him, possibly influenced by pressure and circumstances rather than his full ability. That's why De La Hoya's earlier comments about mindset and motivation become relevant here, because they suggest Charlo wasn't operating at his natural level. In a potential matchup with Crawford, the expectation would be that he enters as a more complete and confident version of himself, not the restrained fighter seen on that occasion. That makes underestimating him a serious risk. Beyond the ring, De La Hoya has also pointed to broader issues affecting boxing, including promotional conflicts, disputes behind the scenes, and major financial interests shaping the sport. In his view, all of this tension exists outside the ropes, but it inevitably influences what happens inside them, adding another layer of complexity to every major fight negotiation and matchup.
You posted on social media the other day, you're kind of fired up about the Canelo fight. Why didn't you like that fight?
Because it was boring.
What?
I mean, when a fighter throws one punch, when two fighters throw one punch in one round, I mean, what do you expect? I mean, I'm a fighter who has been in there, in the line of fire, throwing 100 punches around. Like, the fans want to be entertained. So that was my critique, is coming from a fighter, coming from a world champion. Yeah, it was boring.
Oscar De La Hoya himself set the tone with his criticism, arguing that the Canelo-Crawford undercard was a poor investment for Turki Al-Alshik. He went as far as saying the matchmaking decisions behind the event were badly handled, and even suggested that those responsible for putting the card together should be replaced.
I just look, the fact that a new entity is coming into boxing and already wants to change a bill that has been in place for decades that protects fighters, to me, is shady. That's the bottom line. Think about it. It's shady. The first thing you want to do is change the law, change the rule, the Muhammad Ali Act, which protects the fighters. I instantly think about what they did with the UFC. I instantly think about the UFC signing hundreds, if not thousands of fighters, and they don't even see the light of day. There's total transparency with the bill. you're obligated as a promoter to disclose, everything that might be in the pot. The fighters call it the pot. And you're obligated to disclose, the financial status of your event, of the fighter's event. If you're a main event fighter or championship fighter, you have every right to look at the books. And with this amendment, they're gonna try
De La Hoya also pointed out that ongoing tensions and rivalries between promoters often lead to weaker undercards, which in turn can hurt the overall momentum of the sport and slow its growth. He also expressed disappointment about the departure of Showtime from boxing coverage. In his view, its exit was a negative moment for the sport, though he also acknowledged that it could open the door for new platforms and opportunities to emerge in boxing's future landscape.
I was proud that boxing was on Netflix, just being a purist of the sport. You feel proud. I was not happy with the matchups. I mean, what I saw the week of the Canelo fight, they tried doing some contender boxing stuff. You're having precious contenders, right? Who I know can become world champions 3, 4, 5 years down the road. They're getting eliminated and beat. And you're never gonna hear from them again. That's not fair to the fighter. Now, if that's fair business to them, more power to them. Let them build whatever league they're trying to build. It's okay. Boxing here is safe with me and Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren, the serious guys in the sport. The guys who respect the history and the honor that comes with it. You have a global platform, Netflix, Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford. Every fight that a new audience is gonna watch should have been a known name, should have been champion versus champion. The matchup should have been better. I thought it was a slow night. Completely a slow night. It was still great for boxing because it's out there and people are watching all over the world, but it left a little bad.
With TKO entering the sport, Showtime stepping away, and promoters increasingly involved in legal disputes against one another, the sense is that boxing no longer has a single clear authority guiding it.
Is there anything you could share about that meeting, what you guys have going during the press conference?
Yeah, there's really no details I can mention, but let's just say that some really big fights are going to happen very soon. And that's why I called out all promoters like Eddie Hearn, like Al Heyman, who's probably going to be impossible to talk to because nobody ever sees him. But we want to bring promoters together to work together and just create and the biggest fights possible for the fans. That's all I want to do, and that's what boxing.
For a fighter like Terence Crawford, that kind of instability could directly affect his future earnings. With the business side of boxing becoming less structured, those guaranteed 8-figure paydays may not always be available in the same way. Did I end that situation? He might be forced into fights that are more about timing and availability than ideal matchmaking. Matchups like Jermell Charlo becoming more of a necessity for a major payday rather than a carefully chosen sporting decision, when the promotional landscape is unsettled. The chaos outside the ring starts to influence what happens inside it, turning career choices into financial compromises instead of purely strategic decisions.
And I just think that without that rule there, without that clause there, or wiping out the Muhammad Ali Act, the fighter is vulnerable. The fans are not gonna watch real boxing, and real boxing is the best talent that's developed fighting the very best talent. They're never going to see that because they're going to eliminate each other in their first fight, second fight, and guess what? If you don't win the second fight, you're going to be shelved, just like the UFC does with their fighters.
Oscar De La Hoya questioned whether Jermell Charlo is even the right opponent for Terence Crawford, suggesting there are bigger dangers looming beneath the surface of his career trajectory. He warned that Crawford isn't just dealing with one challenger, but with a shock-filled division full of rising threats. In his view, time itself is becoming the biggest opponent Crawford has to manage. Fighters like Jaron Ennis, Virgil Ortiz Jr., and Charlo represent a wave of younger, hungry contenders who are all closing in. The De La Hoya's point is that Crawford cannot afford to take every fight freely anymore. Each decision matters, because every matchup carries risk against a new generation of elite talent. In that sense, the real challenge isn't just choosing who to fight next, but surviving long enough in the sport before the next wave fully takes over.
Next move,
right?
And what would you like his next move to be?
I think he should go down and win a title at 160 because he won it.
De La Hoya believes that if he wants to reach true greatness, he eventually has to step in the ring with those opponents, even if it risks ending his undefeated record. At the center of the debate is Crawford's own legacy. The question becomes whether he should risk everything he has built in order to earn recognition as an all-time great.